You've tuned in to chipsgrooveradio with your hosts, Mike and John. Well, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Mike. With me today is my good friend, Jesse. Say hello, sir.
Hey, y'all. What's up?
You are listening to Chip Grooves Radio, and quick announcement, John will not be joining us tonight. He has something he had to do, Jesse, so it's just going to be us tonight.
Cool. Sounds good. I'm all here for it.
We had some short discussion about video game adaptations in film and television, and that is a subject because there's a lot of varied opinion as to the success rate of transitioning. Let's put it that way. How are you feeling about that particularly? I know there are some examples of really good and some examples of terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. When we were kind of prepping for the episode after we were spitballing topics, I kind of just pulled up Wikipedia and looked at a list of, video games translated to movies and TV shows. And I didn't realize quite how many there were. Granted, a lot of it is like direct to streaming or direct to DVD type stuff. But even for big budget films and TV shows, there's really a lot more than I thought there were. And there have been some real bangers, I'll tell you what. But the early days of theatrical adaptations of video games, well, like so many other things, like superhero movies and a few others, it was a rocky start, to say the least.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, I think it was a rocky start simply because it hadn't been established as a viable medium, I don't think. Movie producers did not look at video games as something to really put a lot of effort into. I mean, there were some, for sure, that took their time and had a lot of effort put into it. But I would say when you're coming across the early 90s, late 80s video game adaptations, it's like, well, we're going to use the title and we're going to do just about whatever we want with it.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I mean, one movie that springs to mind is obviously Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
I think that is one of the wildest adaptations I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
I saw that in theater.
Me too.
That was a day.
That was a trip. And, that movie has been talked about from, to the moon and back at this point. But it's kind of funny because, you go back and watch it now. And, when you get to the theater and you sat down and within about 30 minutes, you realized, this is not Super Mario Brothers. What are they doing? Not even close. Looking back at it, because I just watched it with my kids, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. It's not as bad as I remembered, but it's still not Super Mario Brothers. And there's a lot of good stuff in it, but yeah.
It almost plays better as this dystopian future.
Yeah.
Because Dennis Hopper's in it, and movies like Space Truckers comes to mind, and fucking...
Yeah.
A good 90s, really weird, off the fucking reservation movie. It comes off as just a one-off film, rather than being tied to one of the most, if not the most popular gaming franchise of all time. Yeah. Extraordinarily popular. So,
I mean, they literally could have just not called it Super Mario Brothers and used all the same production values and rough character concepts, and it probably would have been pretty cool, if I'm being honest.
I would agree with that. So we're talking about Super Mario Brothers. That's an obvious oddball example. I'm not going to call it straight up terrible. It's just not Super Mario Brothers. What would you say, let's say for you, what would be one of your favorites, if not your favorite?
Favorites? Oof, geez. I mean, I got to say, we're not restricting ourselves just to movies. I would say that my number one has to be The Last of Us live action series. That
absolutely
blew me away. It did absolutely everything to capture the game, and I think that really it's because the game seems to have been developed to play like a movie. The two just are, they're seamless,
Right.
So that might be a little bit of a cop-out answer, because like the game is kind of a movie, and the movie is basically just the game, and that's okay. But phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't say it's necessarily a cop-out answer, simply because in games you can probably do more than you can do in a film.
Yeah.
Depending on how you approach it. But I would say the success for sure of the television series has a lot to do with Druckmann being so heavily involved.
Yeah.
Obviously, he is the big guy, the director of the games. He knows how these characters would act. He knows the stories. He wanted to, from my understanding, he wanted to get as close to the games as possible, but still tell a compelling story, which is key for me, because I'm a big proponent of book adaptations. And a lot of people who are gung-ho about, say, Lord of the Rings or Jurassic Park or something, like myself, those are two of my favorites. The movies vary wildly from the books.
Oh, yeah.
But I've always approached films as I want to be surprised by something. I want to be challenged by, what I read in the book versus what I'm seeing on the screen. So I think movies need to tell their own stories, as do television shows, especially if they're based on other material. And so I'm okay generally with decisions like that, because if you know the ending, you're not going to watch. In my opinion, it's like, well, why am I experiencing this if it plays out exactly like it does in the book?
Yeah, exactly.
I think The Last of Us is very, very close to the game. I have not played it through completely, but from the reviews I've heard, it is heads and shoulders on par with the games themselves.
It's pretty close to beat for beat. I mean, there's some variants, but by and large, it's real close. I would say, well, what about yours? Tell me your favorite before I go on my next point about a movie that diverged quite a bit from the established canon.
I would say, off the top of my head, and this is strictly, I don't know if it's just the fan in me talking, but for the time, I would say Silent Hill really captured the feel of the games. It didn't do everything well, but it really tried to capture the aesthetic of it. And I think at the time, we're talking 18 years ago at this point, 2006, it was really good. I mean, Akira Yamaoka came on to like remaster his score. So a lot of the songs were given a facelift, and it really, if he did not have his influence on the soundtrack, it would not have worked probably as well as it did. But the story itself was compelling. It was mostly parallel to the first game, but it was vastly different. It was fun. I felt like they captured the feel of Silent Hill. Don't get me started on the next movie, because that did not. It was terrible. I don't know why they did anything with that movie. That was god awful. But I'm looking forward to return to Silent Hill, because the original movie's director is coming back to give that series another go at it. So I'm hoping he produces something that is at least on par with the first film, because I was pleasantly surprised.
I would say another real standout favorite of mine, and again, it diverges quite a bit from the source material, but honestly, it's the original Resident Evil movie. I love the hell out of that.
Really?
It's got some issues, and it doesn't play as well now as it did when it first came out, and I saw it in the theater, and I was like, whoa, the soundtrack is awesome, and there's like zombies and laser stuff and a weird AI girl robot that, like, it doesn't make any sense at all.
This isn't in the game.
It's not in the game. Not at all. I do feel like there's enough of the game there, and I like that they filmed it as like a prequel, so to speak, which was cool. It let them have a lot more artistic license. It's not a very good movie. Like, I've watched it a couple of times in the last few years. Doesn't matter. But it's something that I'll put on anytime that I'm doing chores and sit down for the cool parts.
It's comfort food for you.
It's comfort food.
And
right, exactly.
That's fine. And that's totally okay. I do that with a lot of stuff myself. I'll watch the same TV shows, movies, whatever. I'll have them on in the background and just do whatever. But to comment on Resident Evil, I feel like I'm going to insert my foot in my mouth after coming off of saying, things are okay to deviate from source material. I don't genuinely have a problem with Resident Evil, but it is one of those games that they're popular for a reason, and to take such a drastic chance on what you did to it with the first Resident Evil movie and the subsequent, they follow the same storyline.
Yeah, they stuck
same
to
characters.
It.
Yeah, and that's commendable because they kept selling tickets, so I can't really fault them for it.
Right. I mean, when did the last one come out? Like, just recently, right?
It was not that long ago, yeah.
Yeah.
A few years, maybe. It was jarring. I'll just put it that way. I didn't go into it thinking it was going to be a great movie. I was like 16 or something when it came out. So I was my typical teenager. You know, I'm a smartass, and I went into it waiting for a good time and to laugh at it rather than with it. You know, I enjoyed my time with it, and it is one of those movies. I actually turned it on streaming last year. So I'm like, yeah, it's a fun movie. I can get behind it.
I just looked at, while we were talking, I looked at what the most recent Resident Evil movie release was. And it looks like Welcome to Raccoon City 2021. Is that accurate? I think it might be.
For
live
that's
actions, yeah.
The TV show.
Oh,
right?
is that the TV show? All right, cool.
I think it is. I'm not positive. I didn't watch it.
Anyway.
It bombed, so...
Yeah, it did. The box office was not very good there. Domestic product.
The streaming or whatever.
Streaming, yeah. I don't even know how you term that. Anyway.
I don't know how they gauge that shit.
I have no idea.
I mean, I read something once that Netflix is like, if you spend more than 2 minutes on it, it counts as like a tuning in or something. I don't know.
I don't know how that works. It's madness. In closing, before we move on, I will just say I did see Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within in the theater.
Me too.
On release weekend, and I enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it.
Too.
And I have a copy of it, and I watch it from time to time. And you know what? It's pretty good.
I don't think it was that bad.
No, it really wasn't. The problem was that it wasn't Advent Children, and that's what people wanted.
Right.
Was they wanted Advent
People
Children.
want the sequel to Final Fantasy VII.
Which was also great, by the way. Fucking awesome movie.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Great movie.
Yeah.
No, I to piggyback on that, I think Spirits Within was underrated.
Yeah.
And it was just, they made decisions that tanked it just because they put so much effort into it.
Yeah.
But they didn't really calculate the popularity of the series at the time and just how divergent it was from the game. And to transform Final Fantasy into this, it doesn't really bear a resemblance that much.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what? With the last two Final Fantasy movie releases, Advent Children and Kingsglaive, I think they hit the nail on the head with both of those. I really like Kingsglaive. I think it's cool. I don't like Final Fantasy 15 very much. I think it's a freaking terrible game. But the movie's great.
I still have to watch it, and it came with my copy of the game.
You should probably watch it.
And I just never popped it in.
It actually, I feel like if you played the game and you didn't watch the movie, a lot more of the game makes a lot more sense after you've watched the movie. It's funny. It's like it's almost required viewing to really get the story in the game. But I'll let you watch it and let me know what you think.
I will let you know, sir.
Yeah.
But like you said, we should probably move on to the topic at hand, and that is none other than the Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
You heard it right, folks. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild soundtrack. We're going to talk about that today. This Jesse, was your pick. So tell me why you chose it.
Yeah, so like we were saying before we actually started recording, I actually did not play this game at release. I had a couple of friends that were head over heels about it. I didn't have a Switch at the time that this came out. I actually bought a Switch right around the time that I decided it was time to play this game. We were talking about platform exclusives before. Anyway, if anybody does platform exclusives right, it's Nintendo, but that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yep.
At any rate, we
talked about that last week, Jesse.
Exactly.
We can't
get into it again. So one of the first things that really caught my attention when I started playing, because the game starts so open world and with so little direction, like you really, there's no tutorial to speak of. It's like you start the game and you're in the game. That's pretty much it. And I could tell right from the beginning that the music was going to be a really big part of the storytelling. It always kind of was in previous Legend of Zelda games.
In a more traditional sense.
Yeah. This game, as compared to previous games in the series, really, really, really took the music and the soundtrack to a whole new level, though, and it's made an impression on me ever since.
It diverged. I'm going to stop saying that word today.
That's my fault. I'm the one that said it.
It may be,
diverged. Drinking game, folks.
It differs from the rest of the series in the sense that the songs and the soundtrack as a whole are generally what I would call persistent rather than looped music, right?
Yeah.
So it's music that feels like it's living and it's adapting to what's happening on screen, and it has a minimalist approach, which I really like because it makes the world in a weird way feel bigger.
Yeah, it really does.
I don't know if you... Okay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I don't know if you agree with that or not.
It's funny because, we're looking at the soundtrack, and before we started recording, one of the things you said was, okay, are we working off the 24-track soundtrack? And I was like, no.
No.
We're working off the full soundtrack. And when you add up how many tracks there are in it over the course of all of the discs, it's, I think, about 200. The total runtime is 9.5 hours. And that goes exactly to what you were just saying. Every single area, every single situation you find yourself in has its own unique music track. You are constantly, throughout the entire course of the game, exposed to new music anytime you experience something new. There's day and night versions of a bunch of the different songs, day and night versions of battle when you're in the Lost Woods. Hyrule Castle battle music, Zoro's Domain battle music. It just goes on and on and on. But they do such a good job of tying all of those musical themes together across 9.5 hours of music that it quite frankly, it's a real accomplishment, if I'm being honest.
Absolutely. And we are talking, of course, of composers Manaka Kataoka, Yasuaki Iwata, and Hajime Wakai. So there were 3 main composers on this album, and they came together to create this living organism of a soundtrack. It is breathtaking, no pun intended, but just what they accomplished with this. And what the soundtrack does so well is paint a vast landscape through the music, and it's extremely poignant and evocative. From the opening theme with light piano melody to the Oriental themes peppered throughout Hyrule this time, which I think is a somewhat new addition, at least that style of music, those instruments for the series. The composers focused on immersion this time rather than sweeping orchestral arrangements and bombastic themes that we've come to know and love. I'll be honest, it's a key complaint for a lot of people, and I disagree wholeheartedly with them.
Totally disagree. But that's okay. They're entitled to their opinions.
Yeah, they're entitled to their opinion. And there is one thing that Zelda is known for is that theme and great songs. And John and I covered A Link to the Past, and you cannot tell me that the music was not moving and extremely important to that game. Yep. But this is as well, just in a different way. Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. That was spot on.
Now, for reference, the main theme is one example. I want to see if you agree with this.
Sure.
Melodic and maybe traditional songs are few and far between on this album. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Yeah, there's a lot, aside from a couple here and there, there's a lot of short little punchy songs, a minute long, 20 seconds long, 30 seconds long, because again, there's a unique musical theme for so many different situations that you come across in the game. You don't get a lot of those long form melodic compositions like you do in the main theme and a few others.
Yeah, and I wanted to highlight the main theme because it's an extremely simple, inquisitive, and delicate song. It starts with a piano melody, and just when you think you know where it's going, the orchestra, complete with strings and flutes, really explodes onto the scene with a really graceful power.
Yeah.
And that inquisitive piano sounds like it has just discovered this immense world to explore, displayed by that sweeping and beautiful orchestra. And I feel like this really works as a parallel to how you play the game.
Yeah.
One curiosity can lead to a whole lot more to discover. eventually the song just comes back down, and like a twinkling light in the distance, beckoning you to explore it, it just ends. Yeah, and it's the perfect picture of how you play this game, because it's just like, hey, what's over here? I'm going to go look at it. And that leads to a literal world of different things that you weren't planning for just by that question, like, what's over here? And that's how this game is played. And I think the composers knew and kind of guided how they wrote this soundtrack. This is how our players are going to experience this game. It's all about discovery. It's all about testing limits. I can't tell you how many times I tried to climb a mountain in the rain just because I wanted to see if I could bypass an area or get somewhere maybe I should spend a little bit more time advancing first. Or I wanted to try new things, and I would open doors that I wasn't prepared for or I expected. And either way, it was just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're talking about how this game really did a lot more with its soundtrack than other games in the series. And to be fair, a lot of them had phenomenal soundtracks. I mean, Twilight Princess was phenomenal. Skyward Sword was phenomenal. Even going back to the originals, I mean, heck, I still, such as it is, Zelda 2 or Legend of Zelda 2, like it's still got tracks that live rent-free in my brain. But I think that one thing that this particular soundtrack did was it took soundtracks for Nintendo games in general to a whole new level. Like, we'd seen a lot of phenomenal stuff, like, especially in the Zelda series, like we'd mentioned, but this was something really unique on a Nintendo original that I don't really think I'd ever really seen the likes of before.
There is a sense, even with the first Zelda, I mean, it's literally one song generally throughout the entire game, unless you're in a dungeon. It has a sense of adventure to it that you don't necessarily, and this is not taking anything away from Super Mario, but written by the same man, Koji Kondo. There's whimsy to Mario, but this legendary adventure song with Zelda, it really gives you that sense of adventure. It gives you this, you're on a mission and you're discovering things and you're carrying out this quest. And that song has really permeated the entire series. It became one of the most iconic things in terms of video game music, and that's something to say. I think the biggest thing for me is what I had said towards the beginning is that somehow the grand scale of this game is felt through the score, and it's more intriguing to me because of that minimalist approach. It's not a terribly obvious or deliberate soundtrack. A majority of the game is fairly quiet and wistful. Like any other game, the soundtrack itself is quirky at times and full of fun characters and situations. But the music just isn't in your face the way it is in every other Zelda title. It feels more like a set dressing, staying in the background, but always keeping the larger world in mind. I would say one of my favorite songs is the Shrine song. It's just an extremely mystical track. It's curious. It's telling this ancient tale about technology that Link must really decipher and understand. There are many, many shrines peppered throughout Hyrule this go around. And while these trials are at times frustrating, more so than others, there are very difficult ones. But this song accompanies you for the entire time, and it makes much more bearable. There are some frustrating shrines in this game, but having this to accompany you, and it feels like you're investigating this and you're trying to understand the puzzle, and it just feels like a very cool, inquisitive track. I like it.
Yeah, it's a really good one to make repeat appearances throughout the entire course of the game. I love the sense of mystery that it evokes. Throughout most of the game, the Sheikah technology, the shrines, the Sheikah towers, there's always a lot of sort of like mysticism around them. It takes quite a while of playing the game before you really learn any of the history behind them, especially when you first start. I mean, you wake up in the Shrine of Awakening, you find essentially a Nintendo Switch that you carry around with you for the rest of the game, and you really don't know anything about them. And I think that sense of kind of ancient mystery is exactly what this song brings to the forefront.
Absolutely. It's one of those songs where it feels like you're on the cusp of discovering something or understanding this technology that you are faced with. And that's really part of what makes this game so fun is you're experiencing this world almost like Link is.
Yeah.
You're discovering all these things. And not to mention things we have not seen in Zelda before. So that's kind of cool on that level too. Now, one thing I noticed, and I mentioned it briefly, I feel like this soundtrack has more of an Eastern influence than previous titles. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think you're definitely right. I think a lot of that has to do with the very firm roots that they gave the Sheikah culture and all the technology in Eastern mysticism. And they really, again, because that was such a central part of the game, I feel like they have a lot of tracks that are kind of structured around those musical themes. And I really like it. It gives a different flavor to the soundtrack on the whole than I think you really see in a lot of the others. A lot of the other previous iterations of the game had a very kind of traditional, Western European medieval sort of spin to them.
Orchestral, more traditional, but I would say more something that we as Westerners are used to.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one has an Eastern influence by a large margin, I would say, when you compare it to other titles in the game or in the series.
Yeah.
And I want to say that in and of itself makes the world feel more alive, just because it is, I don't want to say foreign, but foreign to us.
It's different
as Americans.
Exactly.
And it's different for the series, which makes it also more alive. Something that just makes the world feel bigger. They were attempting many new things with this soundtrack, with this game. And I think this is just one of those things that helps bring it to life in a more fleshed out way. It's something that we've not really experienced with the series, and they're making it their own. They're putting it in this game that is breaking boundaries left and right.
Yeah.
So it just brings a new level to the series. It was a welcome addition to this game, and it's very beautiful to listen to. There are a lot of instruments you don't typically hear in games anymore, and I just really enjoy the different pace the music was taking, especially with those tracks.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's so many different musical themes across the entire game. They really do a good job of making each of the major locales, like the mountains that Rito Village is in, the Gerudo Desert, everywhere has very unique musical themes, but a lot of it still gets tied back to those Eastern influences that you were talking about. And I really appreciate the variety, but the fact that the game does a good job of kind of bringing it all back together and tying things up with a nice little bow. It's great.
There has to be, I would imagine, a track or two that you are drawn to. What comes to mind when you think of Breath of the Wild?
Yeah, I think if there's any single track that encapsulates the entire game for me, and it's probably not one that would jump to mind for a lot of folks, it's actually Rito Village. It's a really long track, like 12, 14 minutes long, and it does a great job of starting out subtle and then over time building in more and more complexity. It's very relaxing. It's a song that you could just kind of have on in the background and drink in the scenery while you listen to it. Really beautiful composition.
And that's exactly what you're doing. That's a great way to put it. You're drinking in the scenery.
Yeah.
It's such a relaxing tune. It is something you're getting to know this village. You're getting to know the people of it. It is a long track that brings to point that looped nature of that I was talking about, where this game feels much more versatile in the music. It's meant to be listened through rather than on repeat. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's one of those things you want to experience it as a whole.
Yeah.
At least song for song. Maybe not the whole album. That's 10 hours out of your day. But it's one of those things where the music is less about its presence and more about the story.
Yeah, it really does. It tells a story. Yeah.
It doesn't need to repeat.
Yeah, it's almost like you want to listen to this like you listen to something on vinyl. Like if you're listening to something on vinyl, you can't skip ahead. It's not easy to repeat stuff. And usually the songs are arranged in a very well thought out order. In a meaningful way, exactly. And, you know, a lot of the songs in this game are not ones that you would just go back and repeat because they're so awesome. And like, oh man, I got to listen to that again. Yeah. That was incredible. Once is usually enough. And a lot of times that's okay because you've got all of these short little tracks, 30 seconds, a minute, maybe a little bit more. And if you listen to them in progression, it just flows. It just flows. And this is one of the very few examples of a long-form song on this soundtrack. Obviously, we're not going to listen to all 14 minutes of it, but if you were to, you would
Strap in, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I know, right? If we were to, you would find that it's not 14 minutes of the same couple of, you know, sections repeating over and over. Every single time you get to a new segment of the song, it's a little bit different. The pacing is different.
Yeah.
The instruments are different. It's really quite impressive, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. There is such life in this song. Like you said, it encapsulates the game. It's very poignant and very engrossing because you are not only taking in this village visually as you play the game, but you're accepting it with your ears. You're listening to how this place exists in the world of Breath of the Wild this time. And it's just an extremely lively track. I really enjoy it. It is completely mood setting. It is a come down from any action you may have been experiencing beforehand. This is a good place to collect your thoughts. And it's just a gorgeous song. It feels like the composers wanted the music to really represent the ever-changing environments you find yourself in with this soundtrack. Not just geography, but situations, confrontations, things like that. The theme of the game is exploration, you know, trial and error. The world really begs you to figure situations out, to try new things and adapt. So a playful and inquisitive soundtrack that almost narrates how you're playing and acting is the perfect complement to that. And by not restricting the songs to loops, it really opens the door for the game to stay longer in our ears and not be obtrusive. You know, if you think of the music as a house guest while you play the game, that sounds dumb, but it's accompanying you while you're playing it, and we're glad to have it, but it is possible to overstay your welcome, or its welcome. And older games are much more contained. Typically, the songs looped several times per area. With a vast game like this, you know, an adaptive soundtrack feels natural. It feels right, and you don't leave it wanting to stab your ears out. You wanted to enjoy the soundtrack. So these songs that have beginnings, they have middles, they have ends, they beckon you to keep listening because it is something new around every corner. So I just really enjoy the effort the composers took for this album.
So what about you? What else stands out to you? Big track that really grabs your attention and you find yourself coming back for more.
Big track. Oh man.
I know, there's a lot of good ones.
Well, I'm a big fan of battle music. And I would say that what really gets me on this album is that your typical fights with say what are those things called? The crawly things. It's been a while since I played the
Guardians.
Game. Guardians.
Yes.
Okay. There is some really cool music with that because there's a lot of off tune instrumentation. It makes it feel really off and weird, like something you're experiencing is not of this world.
Yeah.
I like the tack they took with those songs because there's just a almost playfulness with it, even though you're in a struggle of life and death. You know, this thing's trying to kill you, shooting lasers at you. There is an unexpected vibe to it that I just really enjoyed.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool because, you know, just the Guardians in and of themselves really are kind of an illustration of how you progress throughout the course of the game. I mean, the first time that you stumble across a Guardian, it's like immobile, it's covered in moss, and you've walked past a bunch of them that just are laying there like statues. And then all of a sudden, one of them wakes up.
Yeah.
And starts shooting you with lasers. And one-shots you because you have 3 hearts and a wooden shield. And then to see your interactions with those Guardians throughout the course of the game, every time that same music comes on, and for the first 3/4 of the game, when that music comes on, you're like, oh shit, I need to run right away. And then you get to this point where, I can actually deal with these things now. Limits. I can test my limits. And then as, you know, depending on how far you take it in terms of, you know, farming up better gear, getting more heart containers, it gets to a point very late in the game that I wouldn't go so far as to say trivially easy, but they're not a challenge anymore.
No.
And to see that music really come into play from the very, very, very early parts of the game, and to change its meaning from something that is a oh shit moment to, oh, this is going to be fun. It's really cool.
Exactly. And it's cool because the music for those particular encounters is playful. Like they're playing with their food. And then by the end of the game, you're playing with them.
Right. You're like, I can just
it does have that
blast you back with your own laser and then run up and knock your legs off with the Master Sword. And this is pretty cool. Yeah.
It is a cool twist that song takes.
I remember when my son was playing through it for the first time, anytime a Guardian would come up, he would pause the game and run to find me so that I could run away because he was scared out of his pants by them. And obviously that changed as the game progressed. But yeah, it's really, really cool. And this song, I think, actually helps to drive that home.
I spent a lot of time testing limits with those things, especially the ones that stood still, or you're trying to get to a location and one's patrolling and you're trying to figure out a way to do it without being seen or whatever, just trying to tenchu your way through it if you wanted to. But I had a lot of fun with those guys.
The first time one of those things stands up and starts running at you, oh my goodness.
It's like War of the Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Those things, the tripods just standing up, you're like, oh, fuck. What did I get myself into?
So, keeping to the battle music theme, obviously there's a bunch of great battle music tracks in here. I would love to tell my son that I'm gonna pick the Stone Talus music because it's really, really cool. He loves it. With a limited number of selections, sorry, bud, I just can't go with it. But what I can go with, I've lost the track name. Hold on.
I couldn't find the Guardian one either.
No, it's all right. I got it. Good old Control F and type in Calamity. For me, one of probably the coolest songs on the whole soundtrack, and one of the first ones that I started to see if I could find an orchestrated version of because it was amazing, is the last boss battle music. Dark Beast Ganon appears. Realistically, from a difficulty standpoint, for anybody who's played this and a lot of other Zelda games, the last boss isn't really the hardest one, but it sure as shit is one of the coolest, and the music track just absolutely nails it. Absolutely nails it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think I named the wrong song. It is not Dark Beast Ganon Appears. It is Hatred and Malice Incarnate, Dark Beast Ganon Battle. That's a hell of a track name.
Well, to appreciate Dark Beast Ganon Appears, you get a remixed version of one of the themes from A Link to the Past, which I really appreciate.
Absolutely.
But yes. The most evil-sounding Nintendo song you've ever heard, Hatred and Malice Incarnate, Dark Beast Ganon Battle.
Yeah.
What a song.
Yeah, phenomenal.
And it is, 3 times shorter than The Village?
Yeah.
Theme? Oh, man.
I will say...
What wicked piano in this song, man.
Yeah. I will say that the first couple of times I listened to it on its own, not in the throes of battle, the kind of slightly discordant piano didn't really work for me. It's warm. I've warmed up to it. I would say that in terms of musical composition, this one's probably like a 9 out of 10 for me. It's real close. And man, about a quarter of the way through the song, once it really starts to ramp up, when you hit about that 1 minute mark, unbelievable.
And this is actually a play, especially around that 1 minute mark, of the main theme.
Yeah.
So, it all kind of circles back to Ganon. So that main theme you were hearing at the beginning of the game, at the title screen, the first song I mentioned, it comes back here, at least a little bit. They remix it. They polish it up and do different things with it, which makes it much more foreboding this time, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, no spoilers, there's probably some people out there that haven't played it yet, but just the way that this battle plays out is so much different than any other battle in the entire game that it nails all of the themes of the game from a musical standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, and the very end of the battle, when you finally take him down, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And you think about everything that you've accomplished, what you were and what you are by the end of this game are generally, for the regular player, vastly different people. Now, there are those speedrunners out there who beat the game in like a half hour or whatever, but it's unbelievable.
Not my preferred way of experiencing the game, but speedrunning in and of itself, super fun if you're into it.
Super awesome.
But think of all the great music that you would miss if you did that.
Right? Yeah, you got to spend some time with this album. We can go on and on about the amazingness that is this album. If you had to give it a rating, sir, Jesse, what would you rate this for our dear listener? One listener.
I am going to impose my will upon you because I was leaving my best for last, and I'm gonna just call out one more song real quick before we break.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't want to do 2 in a row, but I'm gonna hold off on my wrap up right now. And I think hands down my favorite song on the entire album is Hyrule Castle Exterior. This is a song that, again, along with a lot of the other songs on the album, starts out a little slower and a little more subtle, and then it builds and builds and builds and builds up again. It seems like a trend on this album. You get to about the 1 minute mark, and it pops off. And Hyrule Castle in this game is not the place you want to be. It is dark. It is imposing. It is full of dangerous enemies, in stark contrast to Tears of the Kingdom, where you basically can start off there and there's no enemies and it's not nearly as cool as it was. But when you finally get to the point that you can gear yourself up, cook all the food that you need, and go to Hyrule Castle to try and fight Calamity Ganon, ooh, man, it is sweeping, it is expansive, and it really, really gives you the sense of majesty that I think they were going for when they made the stage and the song.
Yeah. This is a very dangerous place to be. And this song makes you feel like not only are you nearing the end of the game, this place makes you feel like you've accomplished something just by getting this far. Yeah. This song is a treat to listen to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's that 1.5 minute,
it is.
like 1 to 1.5 minute. It just popped off for me while I'm listening to it. And whew, and it goes not only back to songs from the beginning of this game, it goes all the way back to The Legend of Zelda. Like, game number 1, musical themes in this song go all the way back to that, and they've followed through the entire series ever since. And whew, man, good stuff.
It's Easter eggs like that I can appreciate. I think the naysayers for the soundtrack, you know, they I understand their point, but you know, there are moments like this where they treat you to those memories of the rest of the series, those songs, those themes that come through. We do get tastes here and there on this album, but they just approach it in a different way. And I love the Easter egg feel of it, because there is so much more on top of it that makes it even more exciting for me. I'm not going to say, you know, the fact that there aren't the traditional Zelda themes in here as normal songs isn't disappointing, but I really don't care that much. I think it's just a blast to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, did you have anything else to add on this one, or do you want me to give my rating now?
I think you should give your rating, but the last thing I wanted to say, and this might come as a shock to anyone listening, I'll be honest, I did not even notice until I really thought about it that the themes that I was used to weren't there. I was so engrossed by the music that's here that I didn't care.
No.
Like, didn't even register, you know?
There's more than enough of them for my taste. I mean, you've got the Hyrule Castle stuff, you've got the Korok Forest stuff, you've got the Gerudo music that's almost straight out of Ocarina of Time and some of that stuff. There's more than enough of the traditional Zelda stuff in here for me. And I feel like if they had just rehashed it all again and maybe expanded on it a little bit, it wouldn't be nearly as compelling as a soundtrack, and it wouldn't have really framed the game the way that I would have wanted it to.
Absolutely.
It was
I agree.
Just the right amount. And with all that, I would say my rating for this, unsurprisingly, is going to have to be a 10 out of 10. I guess I don't want to go with Master Swords, because I want to let you have that one obvious. If you want. It's an obvious one. I'm going to go 10 out of 10 amiibo cards, because I used a lot of those when I was playing this game.
Nice. Yes. I used one. Yes. I have the little 8-bit amiibo sitting on my shelf over here. Kept that one. I will agree with you. It is a 10 out of 10 Eponas. I like Epona.
I was real close to saying Epona right there.
Were you?
I was real close.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
Same wavelength.
Yeah, one of these days, maybe we'll talk about a soundtrack that isn't a banger. I keep just pulling
Let's talk about a really shitty one.
Yeah, I know, right?
Time.
Let's we can dunk on it for a little while.
Let's go back to DuckTales.
DuckTales. That's like the moon theme is good. I mean, it's fine.
The moon theme is great. I covered it.
Yeah.
Oh, that was 2 years ago.
Hot minute. Ooh. It was a hot minute.
Hot minute. But that's one of the few episodes that I dunked on something, and I think we can bring that back. But yeah, that is the episode, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening. Jesse, if you would like to plug your show and say goodbye to the good people.
Yeah, for sure. So, as I've mentioned a few times, I have a small niche tabletop wargaming centric podcast that focuses on a game called Malifaux by Weird Games. I am a lifelong nerd, and that's one of the things that I like to talk about the most. It is possible I might be expanding into some other games, because after quite a few years of basically just playing Malifaux, I've just recently branched out and started playing the Song of Ice and Fire Army Scale Miniatures game by Cool Mini or Not. It's a lot of fun. I'm actually going to a tournament this weekend to get some fun games in and meet some new folks. Not looking to do very well, but it sure is going to be a good time.
Well, it sounds like you cleaned up at the last tournament you were at, so maybe you will. Maybe it'll just be a streak.
Who knows? We'll see. Maybe I'll play with 3 practice games of this new system that I've never played before, and I'll go into a tournament and do great. Who knows?
You just sweep the board.
That would be something.
Yeah, well, good luck to you, sir.
Thank you kindly.
Thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please rate and subscribe on your podcast app of choice. Also, check out Magus Media's other podcast, This Is Not Happening, Another X-Files podcast, for complete episode breakdowns, insightful banter, and inane babble. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Well, hello there, Internet people. My name is Josh, and I am one of the hosts of the Nastagram RPG podcast. We're an actual play podcast, and we're good. And why are we good? Well, let's let the other host tell you. Dan.
Hey, everyone. If you like authentic, real-world sound effects, our lasers go pew-pew.
I love it. Matt.
Skip me.
Coming back to Matt.
Ryan.
Okay, so after 2 decades of trying, we finally mastered the 3.5 grapple.
We're not doing that.
Never mind.
Try again.
Scratch that.
Check it out. Look it up.
Cut. John.
If you're looking for a RPG podcast that plays a whole hell of a lot of games, we like to spice the life.
Spice it up.
Spice it up.
Matt, you ready?
Yeah, I think I'm ready. If you enjoy bad accents and overacting, you'll enjoy our podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And Jake, bring us home.
I like to just say we didn't just throw a phone on the table and hit record. Like, Josh does a damn good job with the editing. And
Facts.
if you care about that, you will not be disappointed.
That's right. We spent a bunch of money that we don't make on the podcast.
100%.
So check us out, Nastagram RPG Podcast. You can find us on all the goddamn podcast apps, and we'll see you there.
That's nasty.